Hello everyone and welcome to today's virtual arena. Joining me is none other than Jimmy Nguyen, the founding member of the Bitcoin Association. Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's an absolute pleasure getting you on the show. How are you doing today?
I am well. I am still a bit tired after an extremely busy week last week in New York, hosting our Bitcoin Geek live virtual conference, which I was based in New York, although we had a second broadcast studio in London and people from around the world. It's one of the big Bitcoin SV events we do. And for me, it's super fun, but I'm on stage for 3 days straight and spending weeks preparing. So for days afterwards, I'm in what I call post-conference sleep coma.
I know exactly the feeling. It takes months of preparation. And you know what? I don't know about you. One thing I don't miss about physical events is like the sore feet and the sore back from having to walk around everywhere. How was it in that digital kind of environment? Did you enjoy it more almost?
In some ways, yes, because normally when I'm at our big events, our last one was in London, CoinGeek London in February, right before the world shut down because of the COVID pandemic. And we had almost 1,000 people in person, which is great. Really wonderful live energy, lots of excitement, and you get the energy of a crowd. But then I can't go to the bathroom without being, assaulted by people wanting to talk to me or pitch a business opportunity or
even at the urinal,
which is wonderful, which is absolutely wonderful. It shows the growth of the Bitcoin SV ecosystem. But sometimes, a man's just got to pee.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's got to be a very different change. But you know what? From what I can tell from global movements, it seems like this is going to be just a continuing trend. And I think it's a sign of things to come. I've seen some footage from you at CoinGeek New York, and it just looked absolutely slick. It looked absolutely incredible. So congratulations, but it just shows that it can work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you. And luckily we had, Calvin Ayre and the CoinGeek team who's willing to invest in what was high quality production. I think even our audience who's used to slick CoinGeek live event, in-person events, was pretty surprised because it wasn't just like a Zoom virtual conference, which we're all, accustomed to these days. It was really broadcast quality. It was a live broadcast with 2 actual broadcast studios and digital stages built in New York where I hosted it, and then a second one in London for all of our UK and Europe speakers. And it had the feel almost, instead of a conference, of basically a talk show. So I became Bitcoin Oprah for 3 days. Yes.
That's quite the title. That's how I should have introed you earlier. Brilliant. Well, Jimmy, today we're going to be talking quite a bit more about Bitcoin SV, the Bitcoin Association, and really, for me, it's something that's very important and how much Bitcoin can really open up finance for a lot of people. So if we could go, let's move the conversation a bit to the beginning of things. Can you tell our viewers a bit more about the Bitcoin Association, please?
Sure. We are a global industry organization based out of Switzerland. We're a Swiss nonprofit association called the Verein in Switzerland. It's the same type of structure that's used for a lot of the world nonprofit associations, such as the FIFA, sports organization.
Sure.
For soccer, as we call it in the football, as you might know. Yes, and it is the organization that backs and supports Bitcoin SV. Bitcoin SV is the only version of Bitcoin that, in our view, fulfills the original design, protocol, and vision of its creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, which I'm happy to talk about today. So we have members all across the globe that range from all aspects of the ecosystem. So miners, exchanges, wallets, the entrepreneurs who are building applications, bigger enterprises, all of the participants in the ecosystem. So it's our job to lead the growth of Bitcoin SV. So I, as president, spend a lot of my time building out the business ecosystem for BSV, and and we also support the technical infrastructure and what's called the node software, the software that is used by miners to mine blocks and process transactions on the chain. So we do everything from building the business use cases for Bitcoin SV, providing developer training and education to train more developers on building great applications on Bitcoin SV, lobbying work. I spend a lot of time talking to government agencies and policymakers about our view of a regulation-friendly digital currency ecosystem, because we believe in lawful compliance in order to build greater adoption. So we do everything from training the developers, helping the businesses grow, getting Bitcoin SV listed on exchanges and supported by service providers like custodians and banks, to talking to government representatives. In fact, at our CoinGeek Live conference, we were blessed to have a U.S. congressman as one of our keynote speakers, Darren Soto from the 9th District of Florida, who is co-chair of the U.S. Congressional Blockchain Caucus, a bipartisan group in Congress dedicated to advance blockchain technology responsibly in the U.S. So my job carries a lot of hats, and I like to wear them all as Bitcoin Oprah.
Absolutely brilliant. And well, I mean, from there's a lot to unpack there. And I think the best way to go about it would really be, if you could tell our viewers who might not be aware, what would you categorize, how would you say Bitcoin SV sets itself apart from other Bitcoin currencies?
Bitcoin SV is seeking to fulfill the vision for Bitcoin that Satoshi Nakamoto laid out many, many years ago. So if you go back to the original Bitcoin white paper, it described Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, which means it needs to be used at mass scale, super fast, for very, very cheap transaction fees. That's not what happened along Bitcoin's journey. If you look at BTC, I'm going by the ticker symbols now, BTC decided to restrict the block size of the blockchain, which is the amount of data that can be put into the blockchain on average 10 minutes. And at 1 or 2 megabyte blocks, you can only do 7 transactions a second. That's nowhere near the scale that's necessary to rival Visa and MasterCard as a payment system, which do well over 2,000 transactions a second at average pace, but up to 50, 60,000 transactions a second at peak. So by keeping the blockchain small on BTC, you would not allow Bitcoin to scale. You also have fees that are really high. There have been periods of time where it costs 40 cents to send a BTC transaction, sometimes $40. But no one's going to use Bitcoin as a payment network if it costs $40 to send a Bitcoin transaction. So, so what we believe is that Bitcoin needed to scale. And Satoshi Nakamoto said that at the very beginning of Bitcoin's journey, that Bitcoin never really hits a scale ceiling. So what we're doing in Bitcoin SV is very simple. We restore the original Bitcoin protocol because it had all the power necessary to drive all of the things we want to see in blockchain: smart contracts, tokens, advanced blockchain applications, as well as act as a payment currency. And then we allowed the network to scale. So our team is working on massive scaling of the chain. We raised the block cap progressively to 128 megabytes, to 2 gigabytes, which is 2,000 megabytes, to now there is no cap on our network. And that doesn't mean you'll have, monster blocks every day. It means the network can grow to whatever market forces demand. You're not putting a preset limit on it. Think about it this way. Had we created the internet in the 1990s and said, when we launched email, there can only be 7 emails per second around the world, email never would have grown into big usage. So our view of it is just let the network scale the way it was meant to be a powerful data network. And so on our network now, there is no limit. Miners set whatever the block sizes they believe are appropriate for them based upon market forces. And it's allowed us to achieve 370 megabyte block size on our main network and process well over 1.4 million blocks in a transaction. What does that mean for businesses? It means that on our network, we're seeing comfortably now 2,800 transactions per second sustainable on our main network. Our testing network has gotten to over 6,000 transactions per second. Our transaction fee is less than 1/100th of a US cent, the median transaction fee on Bitcoin SV now. To send Bitcoin in our form anywhere, instantly, anywhere in the world, less than 1/100th of a cent. What does that open up? It opens up both powerful finance opportunities to use Bitcoin as a ledger as well as a payment system very efficiently across the world. But it also allows us to use Bitcoin as a data ledger to power massive blockchain applications. And I'll close this answer by pointing out that that's really the ultimate vision. Bitcoin as the fusion of data plus money, bit plus coin. It's right there in the word. And what at scale you can do is send data across a worldwide network, which is what the Bitcoin protocol allows, and fuse it with monetary value, not just to pay for our everyday consumer transactions, like a cup of coffee at Starbucks, but to create powerful new applications, including in the finance world, that allow the data we interact with every day to have monetary value.
Incredible. And I think that's what I love the most about Bitcoin SV is striving to open up its uses beyond payments. So I'd love to kind of ask you this kind of crystal ball question. Where do you think Bitcoin SV, you've talked about how it can incorporate this data that we use every day. Where do you think this technology could ultimately lead us in the next couple of years, especially now everyone works digitally and from home almost?
Well, first and foremost, we're seeing a push to a cashless society demand, right? Because of COVID-19. And so, for example, in the casino gaming world, there's a company in our ecosystem called BitBoss, an American gaming tech company, that's developed a cashless casino system where they insert a device to the back of physical slot machines. And that connects to the back end of casino accounting and other systems. And that allows a player to be able to play in a casino with a mobile wallet they create using Bitcoin SV and Bitcoin SV based tokens. And so there's a big push for that in the gaming world now because of the concern about safety of cash or physical tickets in a casino. And so that's an example of how COVID-19 is driving a demand for more products and applications that create a cashless society. Bitcoin SV is very useful for that because it allows those transactions to happen at really fast speed with very low transaction fees, which is critical to make it efficient in a casino. And in addition, for our new work at home environment and cultures, the Bitcoin SV blockchain can power all kinds of things that we can do at home. Like, a good example that was launched at our conference last week was an AR app that was done for our conference by a company called Transmira, which has an AR VR platform called Omniscape. And it allowed people to go pick up for fun virtual items that were tokens representing small amounts of Bitcoin SV. They want to use the Bitcoin SV blockchain in their platform for all kinds of spatial applications, is the best way to put it, to allow people, even from the comfort of your own home, to engage with not just their environment, but people in other places, and create applications that leverage data fused with money value that can provide experiential advertising, spatial computing, and many other things that will become, I think, more important as we move into a world where we may work from home more.
Yeah, it really is exciting to see how technology is really kind of almost running away with the possibilities that we could use with this. Now, kind of SV is all about vision. That original vision. And for me,
or it's Satoshi vision.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, fintech and financial technology, the vision for that is really to kind of open up finance for everyone. And obviously, you've talked about the low transaction costs, and we're seeing payments especially become high volume, low value. So that's going to be huge. But how can Bitcoin SV help the everyday person on the street gain better access to better financial technology or financial services going forward?
I think it's important to understand that Bitcoin is more than just a digital currency. It is a protocol, which means it is the rule set for an entire data network. And that means you can do lots of things with it besides just sending money. For Bitcoin SV, because of the scale we talked about, it means you can do micropayments, transactions and business models where you're sending not $10 or $100 to someone in US dollar terms, or 10 pounds, but you can send 1 cent, 1 pence, half a cent. So that allows business models where people can exchange for digital activity all kinds of small amounts. In the finance world, what does this open up? It opens up, for example, more efficient international money remittance. A company in our ecosystem called Setby in South Africa has one of the most popular mobile wallets to be able to send Bitcoin SV to people around the world. But they've launched a new application called Minute Money, which is another app which allows very cheap money remittance across borders. Their first quarter, I believe, is between South Africa and Zimbabwe. And right now in the remittance markets, it can cost people, especially people in developing countries who don't have a lot of money, it can cost them 6 to 8, even 10% of an amount to send across borders, right? To send to their family or friends in another country. And if you are talking about lower income people, that's a huge portion to take out in order to send money. Minute Money can send cross-border transactions using Bitcoin SV as the ledger, the rail, right, because of our speed and low cost, for under $1 to send the transaction, which is so significantly more efficient and allows people in developing countries better access to a important financial service, money remittance. In addition, you can create applications, like there's one that hasn't been fully announced yet in our world, but I know it's coming, that is using Bitcoin SV to do peer-to-peer microlending, where you can lend smaller amounts of money because people can pay you back with smaller amounts of money, which is really valuable for not just the ordinary person in a developing country, but for small business owners, right? Someone who's got a merchant stand in a street market, right? Who might need a little bit of money to buy their products, their supply for the day, but they need it loaned, and they can pay it back with small amounts, and which they can pay interest automatically. For example, you could create applications where from every sale you do, you pay automatically a small amount to the lender, right? So it's automated and therefore reduces the interest that needs to be charged because there's an automated smart contract that allows the repayment of the loan. So that's another really good example. And then finally, another one that got introduced at our CoinGeek Live conference is from a company called the White Wallet. And they are being able to, it's called bsave.io. You can check it out at that website, bsave.io, where you, if you hold Bitcoin SV, can lend it and earn interest back. I think they're offering about 5% APR paid. I'm not sure if it's on a monthly basis or what the period is, paid back in actual BSV. So if you have some BSV and it's just sitting there and you're waiting for it to go up in value like a lot of people are, it doesn't have to stay idle. This is a new financial product. And there's others on the market like it. For example, Celsius Network offers something similar, but they don't pay you back in the exact same coin. They have their own token. So if you stake, $100 of the Bitcoin SV, you don't make BSV back, you make their own token. The White Wallet is offering you BSV for lending your BSV into their ecosystem. So there's this whole range of financial products that become available. And then finally, if you operate with a mobile wallet where you can send and collect BSV for anything, for your small business, for you personally, it means that people, for example, in the Philippines, where 85% of the population is unbanked, can actually engage in financial activity, right? Just with a mobile wallet, without needing a bank account in a country where it's very difficult to get bank accounts. So that company in South Africa, Centbee, has actually launched the ability to pay for things like electricity, mobile airtime top-up, services such as Uber, Google Play Store purchases through their mobile app for people who may not have a bank account or a credit card.
That's so critical, not having, now that we are in that mobile world, and even in developing countries, the mobile adoption rate is huge. Having that ability to then access all the suite of offerings on it is imperative. So that's absolutely incredible to hear. And also, the anecdote you mentioned.
We take it for granted in Western countries, right?
Yeah.
The US for me, in the UK for you, we take for granted that we have a bank account, online bank account, we can do online bill pay, that we have a credit card, right? So that we can shop, online. A lot of people in other countries can't do that. And Bitcoin can solve that, but only if you can use it for cheap, fast, at scale for tiny fees. That's why people don't use BTC for purchasing things. It's too slow and it costs too much to send a transaction. We're trying to solve that with BSV.
That's absolutely brilliant. And another issue that I've heard often on our other virtual arenas is how that cryptocurrencies, they typically have the stigma of obviously being massively fluctuating. But actually, as you mentioned, in a lot of developing countries, it's actually a lot more stable than their own fiat countries. And I've been hearing anecdotes about how actually having that new ability to actually have a stable currency. I mean, can I ask, how do you think that's going to change finance and where the power in finance resides now that developing countries can actually have another platform that is more stable than their country's fiat currency?
Well, I'll disagree with you a little bit on that, which is, it is true that in certain countries like Venezuela, or Zimbabwe, where you've had extremely inflated and fluctuating fiat currencies, right, issued by the government, that the reality is cryptocurrency, digital currency prices are not stable. They're exceptionally volatile. And do you know why? It's because of one main thing. The digital currencies that have existed out there don't have real utility, which is, in my view, what creates real stable value. Things have value in the world if we find them useful in some way. And because BTC's network got crippled, and even though its value has gone up over time, no one really uses it in daily life, right? The people who are using it buy it for speculative investment or the hope for making money in the future. The BTC camp has now started talking about Bitcoin as a store of value, which is not what it was advertised as in the original Bitcoin white paper. It's supposed to be electronic cash we use every day. And so that's why we see these huge rises and falls in Bitcoin price, as well as the other digital currency price. And it's still true of Bitcoin SV because we're sort of tied to the rest of the market. It's because the digital currencies have not developed real value that therefore organically grows over time, and may have rises and falls like foreign currencies do, right, in the Forex market, but not drastic ones like we see in Bitcoin. Like just at the height in early 2018, there was that big boom where Bitcoin hit almost $20,000 per coin, and then at one point, over the past year, it crashed down to I think $4,000 a coin. Right, that's not really stable.
No.
So we're trying to fix that with Bitcoin SV by building a network that gradually builds utility, and where the value is in the data that powers the Bitcoin network, because it's a commodity. Data is the great new commodity of our digital world. And
it's the oil, I've heard people say.
If we use that data with money value, which is what really Bitcoin is, and create all these uses for it, then it will have more organic value growth, and then it will be more stable. We're not there yet, and we're still building that out in Bitcoin SV. So I don't give any illusions that I think we're anywhere close to where we want to be. But that's what we think is necessary to create a real stable value of digital currency, or one that at least grows organically, and therefore is a more legitimate alternative to the fiat currencies, which including in countries where there is high volatility.
Very, very interesting. Now, if we could kind of continue that conversation about fiat currencies, we're seeing, especially in China, we've seen China introduce CBDCs in 6 cities now. How do you think CBDCs are going to change the ecosystem, and how can Bitcoin SV stay relevant when countries are having a central bank offer up their own cryptocurrency?
Yeah, well, CBDCs definitely are coming. For people who think they're not, they are coming in one form or another. I think Bitcoin SV thrives in that ecosystem in one compelling way. We are the most scalable blockchain, with the vision to use the ledger to power all kinds of tokens of real world assets, including CBDCs. So some of the team, for example, at Nchain, the leading blockchain research and development business in the Bitcoin SV ecosystem, which is based out of London, have actually been in talks with some of the central banks. I've sat in, one of those meetings myself with one of the major central banks in the world to explore the option of using Bitcoin SV as the blockchain, the underlying ledger to power their CBDCs. So that's all still in discussion. I can't sit here and tell you that certain central banks are definitely going to do it, but we are pitching Bitcoin SV as the solution to power the CBDCs, and providing the advantage of a public ledger where the transaction history is traceable, auditable, transparent, one of the values of the Bitcoin blockchain, to help bring more transparency to a central bank digital currency, and therefore more confidence, so people can see the transactions that are happening, so that you can win more confidence from the public about the circulation of the coins, where they're being, how they're being used, for example. So that's how I think Bitcoin SV can thrive, and it still can also be its own digital currency. Even in the future of CBDCs, they can be interchangeable. They can be both used for different things. CBDCs will have more stability. They have to be backed and tied to real world assets. But I think they can both coexist. And more importantly, our belief is Bitcoin SV's blockchain can be the best one to power the CBDCs.
Sounds absolutely brilliant. And from what you've told me, I can completely agree with you. So, I mean, we've kind of talked about Bitcoin SV in the future and how it's going to shape finance and ultimately far more other verticals. But I mean, what's next for yourself and what's next for the Bitcoin Association?
Well, what's next for myself personally is getting some more sleep and getting back into my gym routine. Now that the 1 week live conference is over. But where I'd say we are in the Bitcoin SV ecosystem is we've now laid the foundation. We've restored the original Bitcoin protocol. We've removed a lot of limits that developers now can see, wow, you can do so much with this blockchain. So that we don't have to live in a world of 5,000 cryptocurrencies like we live in today. That happened because Bitcoin's power got crippled years ago. And so people started creating all these alternatives like Ethereum and all the tokens based upon that. We're educating the world about how it's possible to do it all on Bitcoin SV. So that foundation has now been laid. Protocol has been restored through something called our Genesis hard fork protocol upgrade in February of this year. We have now demonstrated Bitcoin can scale. That path is continuing. The Nchain team is working on what's called TerraNode, which is a version of the node software designed for enterprise class use. And it's called TerraNode because we believe in a future where terabyte-sized blocks are possible on Bitcoin SV. That is 1 million megabytes, allowing the processing of millions of transactions per second. At that scale, you could have a blockchain that powers everything. Just like we live on one global internet, we think the world is better off with one global blockchain that connects everything rather than a world of 100 different blockchains and 5,000 different cryptocurrencies. So where we're at is having laid the foundation, having demonstrated the scaling work, and continuing to do technical advancements for scaling. We're out educating businesses. So thank you for having me on this conversation to educate your audience about why this platform provides an ideal basis to achieve a vision of greater efficiency with data capacity and low transaction fees. So we're educating businesses. A number of them announced that last week at our conference that they're going to start building on Bitcoin SV, everything from the AR/VR company, a company in the KYC, KYB, Know Your Business, like a RegTech platform out of Europe called Company with a K, that is going to start moving a lot of its KYC, KYB functions to the Bitcoin SV blockchain because of its scale. A company in the intelligence analytics world now supports Bitcoin SV, and Geospock, a company based out of Cambridge that provides solutions for extreme scale data, is now got a lead investment from Nchain and is going to be exploring the intersection of blockchain technology with digitizing things in the real world, including smart communities. So we're at the very beginning of what we think is a very grand path. So it takes the next steps for us are continue to educate businesses about something they never realized the Bitcoin blockchain could do, which is power all forms of data. We're educating developers. We just announced today a partnership with Saxion University out of the Netherlands to create the first massive open online course. It's called the MOOC. It's a thing in the academic world about Bitcoin SV and this Satoshi vision for Bitcoin that will launch in early 2021, free to anyone around the world. It'll be the first of several. So developer education is really important. After that, we're hoping to get some of these cool projects launched into the ecosystem over the coming years so that people can really see this at work. I can talk about it all day, but the world needs to see some of these applications demonstrating this Bitcoin SV usage. So that's what's next for all of us. And Bitcoin Association will continue to grow out of its new headquarters in Zug, Switzerland, Crypto Valley.
The Crypto
Valley. And we're adding people to our team on a regular basis. So there's a lot of work to do. But we're all very excited about this really great vision for Bitcoin, not just as something you trade for money, but something we build into a data network that has the power as the next internet for our world.
Absolutely incredible. I'm sure a lot of the banks that are watching today will be certainly very interested in that AML aspect, because obviously what's been hitting the news recently. So Jimmy, thank you so much for that insight. I mean, it just sounds like you guys are absolutely nailing it. And I mean, as you said, there's this grand vision and it just sounds like you're just heading in the right direction. So thank you very much for joining. I hope you've had a good time yourself.
I have. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me on. We appreciate the opportunity to share Satoshi vision for Bitcoin to the banking and finance world.
Absolutely brilliant. And to all our viewers, thank you so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. And you can catch the rest of the show and much more over at www.fintechf.com and of course YouTube and LinkedIn. So I'll see you there and have a great time. Ciao.